What's up, everybody? This is Dirty Z, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a guide on how to play a Frost DK in patch 5.0.4, the patch before Mr. Pandaria's release. Basically, this patch has changed the talent trees to where they are no longer talent trees, but they are just talents on which any tree or any spec can talent into and benefit from. Before I start the tutorial on the talents I picked, I want to mention that one big change that has changed for Frost DKs in this patch is now, instead of being in Unholy Presence and receiving the haste bonus from that, you are gonna be in Frost Presence. Basically what they did is they made each presence viable to use for each spec. So blood spec will use blood presence, frost spec will use frost presence, and unholy will use unholy presence. However, you do also gain unholy aura, which increases your melee attack speed by 10%, so you do gain a little boost even though you're not in unholy presence. So with that said, now let's move to the talents. For the talents, you have 6 tiers. As of right now, you only have 5 tiers unlocked because you are unable to reach level 90. For the first tier, I chose Unholy Blight. And basically, this is an added DPS gain, which will summon a swarm of unholy insects for 10 seconds, striking enemies within 10 yards every 1 second, and also spreads my blood plague and frost fever. So that's an added DPS boost. On the next tier, it's defensive abilities. For this tier, I use Lichborn. Lichborn allows you to go undead, meaning you can death coil yourself. And you can death coil yourself 2 times, I believe, before you have to start regening runic power. But I think the most I've gotten in a Lichborn death coil cycle is 4 heals, which the heals are right around 20k per, depending on your gear. Maybe less, maybe more. And it also allows you to be immune to charm, fear, sleep, and sleep effects. So it helps with CC as well. CC is crowd control, for those of you who are not aware. The next ability, or next tier of talents, are your CC abilities. Currently I'm using Chillbanes, and basically that is anytime I use Howling Blast and apply Frost Fever, or use Icy Touch and apply Frost Fever, the targets who are infected by Frost Fever are slowed down by 50%, and also my Chains of Ice immobilizes the target for 3 seconds. Another talent you could use would be Asphyxiate, but it replaces Strangulate, so I wanted to keep Strangulate and still have these, so I chose Chillbanes. The next talent is a defensive talent, and in this tier I chose Deathback. The cooldown for Raise Dead got moved down from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. So now Death Pact shares the same cooldown as that. So basically what you can do is you can make a macro to cast Raise Dead and Death Pact at the same time, and it will nuke kill you for up to 50% of your maximum health. And I will show you guys that macro here in just a little bit. The next talent that I chose was Runic Empowerment. Now I'm kind of up in the air. I've thought about maybe changing to Runic Corruption, which will grant me a 45% chance when using Death Coil or Frost Strike to activate Runic Corruption, which increases my runic regeneration rate by 100% for 2.5 seconds. Runic Empowerment basically the same thing, except for instead of increasing my runic power regeneration, it has a chance to activate a randomly fully depleted rune. So I chose runic empowerment. Like I said, I might end up switching to runic corruption, but I'm still in the testing phase. Now let's move on to glyphs. Glyphs, there are a lot of new major glyphs that are very useful, just depending on the situation and your playstyle. Anti-magic shell glyph to me is a no-brainer. It increases the absorption limit to 100%. So now you will receive 100% absorption from your anti-magic shell. The next one I chose was Strangulate. Strangulate silences the target, and if you use it on a target who is casting a spell, it will increase the duration to 6 seconds instead of 4. My last major glyph that I use is Icebound Fortitude, and I'm not sure whether or not I will keep this, but this is what I'm using at the moment. And basically, it reduces the cooldown by 50%, but it also reduces the duration by 75%. So that means instead of being a 3-minute cooldown, it's a 1.5-minute cooldown, but the duration of the effect only lasts for 4 seconds rather than 12. My minor glyphs are as follow. The first one I have is Glyph of Resilient Grip, which is kind of a no-brainer. Anytime a Death Grip ability fails because the target is immune, the cooldowns reset. The next one I use is Glyph of Tranquil Grip. Now, I'm not sure if this has a place in PvP or not. My assumption would be that if you Death Grip a target that is not targeting you, it will no longer taunt that target to attack you, so they will no longer just be attacking you once you Death Grip them. So it could be beneficial because then the target is going to have to switch to attack you. My next minor glyph is kind of a novelty glyph. It's Raise Dead, and basically instead of raising a ghoul, I raise a Geist. So that's my glyphs, and like I said, these are not set in stone, these are just experimental. But that is what I'm using at the moment. Next, let's go to macros. There are 4 macros that I use regularly. The first one is the defensive macro, and that is Death Pact combined with Raise Dead. This macro casts Raise Dead and then it casts Death Pact. So basically, simultaneously, these are casted, giving me 1 new kill. And let me show you guys what that does, what kind of heal that does. So say I'm in combat, I'm fighting this test dummy, and he starts deciding to attack me, and my damage falls, say, to half health. From here, I can cast this macro, which is Death Pact, and boom, 65% of my health is regens, just on not even using a runic power, nothing. That is OP, but awesome. So that's the first macro I use. The second macro I use is a DPS macro, and basically this casts Horn of Winter, Pillar of Frost, and uses my DPS trinket. If you don't have a DPS trinket, you will use 13 out. If you do, you will leave that in. Or if you have your DPS trinket on the very bottom slot, 14, where I have my movement and parrying trinket, you will use 14. Basically, this will make sure you have Horn of Winter up, cast Pillar of Frost, which increases your strength by 20%, and will also use your trinket. So that is for burst damage. The next macro I use, this is an experimental macro and I'm having trouble with it, but I would really like some feedback and maybe to see if we can get this bad boy to work. But basically it is a Howling Blast Outbreak macro. Now you might ask why put both those together. Well, I don't want to have to keybind Outbreak and Howling Blast. So I want to be able to cast Howling Blast and then cast Outbreak, which is free. And that applies another, a little bit added damage onto the target. So that macro works pretty nice. It's not needed, but it will save you some key binding. My last macro that I want to bring up is my Lichborn Death Coil macro. Now this macro requires runic power. So say you're in a fight and you're at high runic power, but you're just, you're taking damage and you need to heal yourself. You can cast this macro, and the key is you cast it, but you have to keep casting it to keep death coiling yourself. So I'll cast it once, it heals me once, I cast it again, it heals me again, I cast it again if I can gain enough. Yep, so up to like 60 something K in heals. So I mean that can be a beneficial thing if you need to heal yourself back up and you have a lot of runic power. But the downside is it does use pretty much all your runic power. So I think maybe if you pair that up with the ability, the talent, Runic Corruption, and you did that when it procced, I think that would be very beneficial to gaining more health. But right now that's what I'm using. So I usually get, if I have full runic health or runic power, I will usually get about 2 heals, which heals for about this, a little bit under the same of what my Death Pact macro heals for. Okay, done with macros. Let's move on to rotation guide. There is no set rotation guide as to what you need to do and what cooldowns to use when. You have to know that on the go. You can't just expect to do everything the same thing once and it be successful against everybody, especially in PvP and battlegrounds and even dueling. So general outline, I'll usually open up with Howling Blast. That applies my Frost Fever to any targets in the area. Then from there, if I notice a healer around in the area, or it's a target that is capable of healing themselves, I will Necrotic Strike either once or twice, and that'll bring up Necrotic Strike, which absorbs damage, a certain amount of damage, or absorbs healing up to a certain amount of healing. From here it's pretty self-explanatory. You want to use Obliterate as much as possible. When you can't use Obliterate and you have a lot of runic power, go ahead and use your Ice or your Frost Strike. You will notice when these pop up, those 2 ice things, that's Killing Machine proc. When it procs, your crit damage is really high. When that procs, your Howling Blast doesn't consume any runes, so you can go ahead and cast a free Howling Blast and get, reapply your Frost Fever or whatnot. Your defensive abilities, you want to use Death Pact when you start receiving heavy damage, and that'll be a new kill. Lichborn macro when you want to heal yourself up and you have a high amount of runic power to go ahead and spend, and you're not worried about doing DPS, because it will deplete all your runic power. The next macro you want to use when you want to do a focused attack on somebody would be your Horn of Winter and Pillar of Frost and Trinket macro. Now when you pop this, you can expect huge DPS gains. As you can see, 75k, that's massive, that's a good hit. So and if it procs, you're gonna get even bigger hits, because it's gonna guarantee pretty much a crit. 69k, I mean this is big damage compared to what I'm used to seeing in Frostspec, and I'm loving it. So anyways, basically you want to use your defensive cooldowns, like they say, as defense. You want to use those before it gets too late, so you can keep applying damage. in your offensive cooldowns, when you've noticed a target has burned their CC abilities, or you can even, I guess, Lichbane to prevent yourself from being able to being attacked or being feared, stunned, whatever, you know. There's different, you know, variations of which you could do. So basically, that's my guide. In this guide, I'm not saying this is the right way to play a Frost DK. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure there's other ways that are better, but this is my guide for what I've found to be pretty successful and have a pretty high survivability rate. I'm asking that you guys, if you guys have any suggestions or comments or criticism or suggestions, anything, to just leave a comment and let me know. And you know, if you do something different, let me know. If you have different macros, let me know. But this is just kind of a general guideline of how you could play a Frost DK. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and end the video. I want to thank you guys for watching, and be on the lookout for more videos, including rogue videos, hunter videos, and some PvP videos as well. So that said, I want to thank you guys for watching again, and peace out.